All right, let's dive in. We're about to open up the user's guide to the single most complex, incredible machine you will ever own, your own body. I mean, think about it. The human body is just this marvel of engineering, right? You've got trillions of parts all working together in pretty much perfect harmony. So, where do we even begin to make sense of all that? What's the real starting point for understanding ourselves? Okay, so before we can start our tour, we've got to learn the language. And believe me, the two most important words, the absolute foundation for everything we're about to talk about, are anatomy and physiology. The easiest way to think about it is like this. They're two sides of the same coin. Anatomy is the what. It's the parts list, right? The science of all the body's structures. Then you've got physiology, which is the how. That's the science of how all those parts actually work. And here's the kicker. You can't have one without the other. Structure always determines function. So, we've got the basic language down. Now, let's pull back the curtain and look at the actual blueprint. How does the body go from the tiniest possible component all the way to the complex organism that is, well, you?
So how is your body organized? You might think it's impossibly complex, but the answer is actually beautifully, wonderfully logical.
It all builds up in levels, kind of like stacking blocks, with each level getting more complex. See, it all starts at the bottom, at the chemical level, with atoms and molecules. Those tiny things group together to form the cellular level. Then cells team up to create the tissue level. You know, stuff like bone or muscle tissue. Different tissues then combine to create the organ level. We're talking about the heart, the lungs, the stomach. Those organs don't work alone. They form teams called organ systems, like the entire cardiovascular system. And finally, you put all those systems together, and what do you get? You, the organismal level. And here's a great visual of that whole process. This is basically your blueprint. You can literally see how every single part, from a tiny molecule all the way up to something as complex as your digestive system, is built upon the level right before it. It's just an incredible, elegant hierarchy. All right, so if we're going to explore this amazing structure, we're going to need a map. Think of it like a universal GPS for the body. We need it so that a doctor in Tokyo and a doctor in Toronto can talk about the exact same spot, no confusion. And that universal map, it all starts right here. This is what we call the anatomical position. It's the standardized, agreed-upon starting point for everything. So you're standing upright, feet flat on the floor, arms hanging at your sides, and, this is the weird but super important part, palms facing forward. From now on, every single directional term we use assumes the body is in this exact pose. Okay, but how do we see inside the body? We can't just look at the surface, right? So to do that, we imagine cutting through it with these planes, or slices. It's kind of like slicing an apple in half to see the core inside. And there are really just three main planes you need to know. First, the sagittal plane. That one cuts vertically, giving you a left and a right half. Then there's the frontal plane, sometimes called the coronal plane. It also cuts vertically, but it divides the body into front and back parts. And finally, the transverse plane cuts horizontally, giving you an upper and a lower section. You use these three slices together, and suddenly you have a complete 3D map of the body's internal layout. Okay, so we've got our map, we've got our tools for looking inside. Now let's actually take a tour of our inner space. It's time to explore the body's really clever protective compartments. These compartments are what we call body cavities. And no, they're not just empty space. They are these perfectly designed containers that do a super important job. They protect, separate, and support all of your vital organs from all the bumps and shocks of just living your life. And here's a look at them. Your major cavities are split into two main groups. You've got the dorsal cavity. That's the one along your back. It holds your brain. That's the cranial cavity. And your spinal cord in the vertebral cavity. Then, up front, you have the ventral cavity. This one's divided into the thoracic cavity, where your heart and lungs live, and then, below that, the huge abdominopelvic cavity, which holds all your digestive and reproductive organs. So that raises a question, right? How can an organ like your heart, which is beating constantly, move around in these tight spaces without creating a ton of damaging friction? Well, the solution is brilliant. And to understand it, I want you to just imagine for a second that you're pushing your fist into a balloon that's not quite all the way blown up. That balloon? That's exactly how these protective linings called serous membranes work. In this analogy, your fist is the organ. The part of the balloon touching your fist, that's the visceral layer. The outer wall of the balloon is the parietal layer. And that little bit of space between them is filled with this slick, lubricating fluid. It lets the organ move and slide around completely friction-free. It's such a simple idea, but it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so let's recap. We have the language, we have the blueprint, we have the physical layout. But what runs the whole show? What's the intelligent operating system in the background, keeping everything in perfect balance 24/7? Well, that brings us to our final and probably most important concept. That amazing system is called homeostasis. Now, the official definition is the condition of equilibrium or balance in the body's internal environment, which is a bit of a mouthful. So let's put it simply. It is your body's constant, nonstop mission to keep everything stable. So how does it do that? How does it maintain this perfect balance? The main way is through something called negative feedback. Basically, the system senses when something is getting out of whack, and it immediately kicks in a response to reverse that change. The absolute best analogy is the thermostat in your house. When it gets too hot, the AC turns on to cool it back down. It's always working to get back to that perfect set point. And it's so important because when this delicate balance fails, that's when you can get diseases like diabetes or hypertension. And this is a perfect real-world example. Let's say you eat a meal. Your blood sugar goes up, your body immediately senses this, and your pancreas releases insulin. That insulin acts like a key, telling your cells to unlock and absorb that extra sugar from your blood. And just like that, your blood sugar level comes right back down to its stable, happy place. This exact loop is happening inside you all the time, and you don't even have to think about it. Now, just to cover all our bases, there is an opposite system, but it's much, much rarer. It's called positive feedback. And instead of reversing a change like a thermostat, this system amplifies it. It pushes the body even farther away from its normal state. So it's not about stability at all. It's used for very specific rapid events. And the classic example everyone uses is childbirth. So there you have it, a quick tour of the language, the blueprint, and the incredible operating system that is you. And that really just leads to one final thought. After seeing all this, just take a second and think, what silent, absolutely incredible feat of balance is your body performing for you right this very moment?